Good morning, all. Welcome to the virtual individual procurement conference for Grady Health Systems, powered by your Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council. We thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. Going to have a very busy morning for you, very active morning with quite a bit of information to hand out. Hopefully you've taken the time to figure out where the mute button is on your screen. Well, not the mute button, the chat button. You are all in muted mode. We will be doing a Q&A as we go along. We will take that via text. This morning, my name again is Otis Crum. I'm going to be your moderator for this morning. I am the Director of Corporate Services for GMSDC, the Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council. This morning, you're going to hear from Ms. Crystal King with the Grady Health System. We're going to hear from Mr. Clovis Vaughn from the Grady Health System. And Ms. Ingrid James with the GMSDC is going to help make sure that we all stay on track for you this morning. So for the agenda, it's going to start with doing business with Grady Health System. And that's going to be led by Ms. Crystal King. And that's, you want to do business with Grady? Here's how, here's the requirements, here's the things you need to know about. And then Clovis is going to talk to us specifically about opportunities that they have now and what it takes to qualify. Then we'll have questions and we'll talk about next steps for getting you in front of the Grady Health System so that you have the products and professional services that they need. So without any further ado, we're going to move along and hear from Ms. Crystal King, Director of Equity and Inclusion for the Grady Health System. Here's Crystal.
We are GMSDC, creating opportunities and delivering results. Welcome to GMSDC's virtual individual procurement conference and opportunity call. Today, we are featuring Grady Health System with Crystal King. Lean forward and pay attention.
Hey you guys, it's Crystal King, Director of Supplier Diversity and Equity at Grady Health System. First of all, thank you to our friends at GMSDC for offering this opportunity for me to speak with you all during this COVID-19 pandemic. I hope that you and your family are staying sheltered in place and being safe. Please take this time to reconnect to things that we've often forgotten about and just make sure that you and the ones you love are safe. There are a few questions that I'm going to answer today, and hopefully it'll give you a better understanding of Grady Health System, how we do things at Grady, and how you can engage with our supply chain.
How does a supplier get engaged with Grady?
I would say the easiest way for you to connect to us is to be active, _active in GMSDC. We rely heavily on the team at GMSDC to vet your companies to make sure that you are bringing everything that you are capable of bringing to the table, and that we know that in a clear and concise manner. There are only two of us on our team at Grady. We're small but mighty. There's me, and then there's Clovis Vaughn, who is the manager of Supplier Diversity and Equity. So we can't be everything and everywhere all the time. So we rely heavily on the team at GMSDC to make sure that we know who is a good fit for Grady and that your company is top notch and ready to rock and roll when we meet you.
What are the top 3 service areas that you purchase from service providers?
There's so many things, as you can imagine, in the medical industry, in the healthcare industry, I should say. We have everything from nuts and bolts and screws to doctors. We source people, we source nurses, we source staff. But the top 3 I would have to say would be medical equipment and supplies, IT hardware, and the third thing would have to be construction. Grady is over 100 years old, and so there is a lot of construction always around the hospital. We're building additions to facilities. We are actually building a whole new surgical center across the street. So right now, medical equipment and supplies, IT hardware, and construction would be our 3 greatest needs.
How does an MBE identify and access your prime suppliers to offer goods and services?
I would say you would have to attend Grady sponsored events. We have a couple of things every year, and GMSDC gets our calendar. So if you're engaged and active in GMSDC, you'll know what's coming up on our calendar. And then be involved in GMSDC, because when we see you at events, then we have more of an opportunity to remember your name, remember your face, remember your services. And so when our primes are looking for subs, if you're engaged with GMSDC and you're engaged with us, your name is at the top of our mind. So that's another way, is to make sure we always know who you are and what you're doing, so that when we are engaging with our primes, then we are throwing your name into the ring. And the third thing would be to attend national conferences. A lot of our prime suppliers are large NMSDC sponsors as well, and so they're already at the national conference. So attending Grady events, being active with GMSDC, and making sure that you attend the national conference are all 3 ways to meet our prime suppliers.
What is the difference between supplier diversity and inclusion mean to Grady?
So our title at Grady is diversity and equity, because it's not just about having different looking people at the table for the RFP. It's also ensuring that those people are winning some RFPs and that those people are getting a fair share of our business at Grady. So for me, diversity just means that you're present and you're there. Inclusion and equity means that you're actually getting your fair share of the pie. And that is what a part of our title at Grady, and that's our mission, to not just know that you are there, but to make sure that you're active and you are actually winning bids and a part of our RFP processes.
What frustrates you most about suppliers?
I get very frustrated if we at Grady engage a diverse supplier and it comes back that there are problems with finances. Our terms are typically net 30. A lot of hospitals' terms are net 60. So you have to have the financial wherewithal to be able to float your company for 60 days. And we don't make exceptions for companies because they are diverse, because they are minority owned, or because they are female owned. The fact that you're a minority owned company is an add-on. It's not a reason to get you special treatment. So when you come, I expect for your finances to be in order that you could accept our net 30 terms. My second frustration is people who don't read their contracts. Now, if you can't afford net 30 terms, or if those are not your terms, then the expectation is that you discuss that before you sign your contract, and not after you sign your contract and then want to change and then hold the end user hostage because you need money to float. That's not okay. I really have a pet peeve for people who overpromise. Our theme is underpromise and overdeliver. It's so frustrating that in order to get in the door, firms will overpromise what they know they can't deliver. You'll promise what you know you can't deliver. And that's not good for your reputation, and that's not good for the Supplier Diversity Program. So our motto is to underpromise and overdeliver.
How important are key performance indicators for suppliers?
Key performance indicators. We have a few things that we really look for. We look to make sure that you are absolutely a certified company, that you are financially sound, and that your safety record is impeccable. Those three things are the key performance indicators that we look for across the board. Now, depending on the RFP, there may be some other requirements, but those are the top three that are consistent across the board.
Share with us why the GPO model at Grady is so important for MBEs to understand.
I would tell anybody who's interested in healthcare across the country, become familiar with group purchasing organizations, with GPO.
Like Vizient?
Vizient. Grady works a lot with Vizient. Figure out what it means to become a Vizient awarded contractor. We do a lot of work with Cardinal Health at the time as our distributor. What does that mean? And what does that do for your business? I think just a lot of minority suppliers are not educated yet about GPOs, but it is the way of healthcare. And if you are going to make inroads, you're going to have to learn about it and become involved.
Our next speaker will be Mr. Clovis Vaughn, Manager of Supplier Diversity and Equity at Grady.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time out this morning, and happy Friday to you all, and welcome to May 1st. Actually, today is the first of the month for May. So I hope you all are continuing to stay well and healthy and stay in place as best as you can under these circumstances. Of course, these are unprecedented times for all of us, and being in the house kind of sets a different level of challenges as you see, or as you might have witnessed during the course of this time. So this morning, I'm going to continue the discussion that Crystal started, kind of give you a little bit the ins and outs about the process and how the process is going today. What are some of the things that we are procuring today, and give you some of those insights as it relates to the process to go through and get those items to us so that we can further evaluate those. The next slide that we are looking at is the personal protection equipment and medical supplies, that one of the top three items that Crystal mentioned during her presentation. As you can see, I've given you a list of supplies, of course, with the NAICS codes and the description of those codes. Of course, the description can change as it relates to items itself and how those actually developed. So with that said, these are the supplies that we're looking for now. I know that a lot of businesses have made a shift to what they would normally do compared to what they can make available, or they have an opportunity for some of these supplies or PPE equipment, and they have reached out to us in droves of people. But I want you to further understand, we're not trying to get you a quick buck. Some of these relationships that we establish, we want these to be established long term. However, when we were in emergency mode to gather some of these supplies, we probably could have taken a closer look and get those supplies from you. But times are settling in more of a, I wouldn't say a norm, but a new norm on these supplies. So we're still looking at suppliers for these different supplies, but we are evaluating them a lot closer. And we'll talk about some of those, more of those questions later in these slides. As you can see, the supplies are still in demand of gloves and N95s and face shields. Sanitizers and wipes continues to be. Isolation gowns and covers. Those are some of the hot items that we need. Thermometers. Most of the people that comes into the hospital will be get back to the norm. Comes into the hospital, you definitely want to check the temperature of those individuals coming into the hospital so that everybody is continue to be in a safe environment. One of the new areas is laboratory testing, or the ability to test, as you can see, because those are some of the areas that will be coming up for COVID-19 patients and things that are being tested. Though Grady has his own labs, of course, with the number of tests that we're presuming to have, some of that overflow can be to some of those other laboratory tests areas of that capital. So those are protection, PPE equipment and medical supplies that we're looking for now. One of the other areas that Crystal mentioned is the construction and facility management. Of course, as you've seen and may heard on a lot of the news outlets and things of that caliber, where Grady is doing a humongous amount of construction work with the Center for Advanced Surgical Service, which is also known as the CAS project. That project is worth some $151 million for the total bill and things of that caliber. So we're continuing to look and add value to the construction area, not to mention the rebuild of the water damage that we had in early December. So we have quite a few projects going on. The infectious disease project is also starting off as well. So those are about 3 or 4 different projects that we have on hand that we're working with at this particular time, even though we're still going through this pandemic. One of the notes that I wanted to kind of point out on the general contractor is in the description, which mentioned about the American Society of Healthcare Engineers, which is also known as ASHE certified. That is one of the new recommendations or new requirements that we have in place to become a contractor with Grady Health System, because we want to make sure that you had some experience working with hospitals and doing the build out as it relates to hospital requirements and specifications as it relates to the project itself. Then you get back into the core pieces of the construction and facility management portfolio. We're talking about architects, we're talking about engineers, we're talking about different engineers, civil, as well as industrial designs and things of that caliber when it comes to the engineering platform. Our core, of course, with HVAC, painting, plumbing, electrical, those are some of the core things that we use on a daily basis. These projects, not only for our long-term projects, but as it relates to management of the hospital overall. So these are constant types of skill sets and people that we're interested in to add to our portfolio for the different projects that we have on hand. And finally, on this construction and facility management is furniture, which is something new, relatively new, as far as we are expanding our reach and building our portfolio for suppliers in the furniture realm. This is also equipment that we need for the different projects that we have going on, especially with the rebuild projects and the new projects that we have with IDP CAS project. So furniture is key in this environment, in this endeavor as well. And last and certainly not least is the information technology piece. Crystal talked about the hardware portion of it, not really the people itself, but hardware as it relates to PCs, desktops. We're talking about iPads as we see listed here, which we have a live interest in some iPads as it relates today. So these are in conjunction with Crystal's statements about the top 3. These are actually being broken down to some of the sub-levels and individual specifications of items that we need on each one of those major topic areas. The next slide talks about some of the questions that our procurement team have an interest in about you. When you approach us with these particular items, these particular products, and you want to have us to have a closer look at what you bring to the table, answer some of these initial questions in-house, because these are some of the questions that I will be asking specifically when you come across my desk or when you approach me about getting Grady an opportunity to do business with you. Can you supply the supplies immediately? This was a lot of this occurrence were regarding the pandemic as it relates to COVID-19 and how quickly could you get some of those supplies that you say you have on hand? How quickly can you get those supplies? We were typically receiving orders within 14 days and less when it comes to custom products. These products, if you can get them to us quickly, we didn't want to speak with you and you tell us, well, we have these products in-house. And when we have a more in-depth conversation, we find out that we have a 2 to 4 or 6 week delay in those products being delivered, or even being, just coming to the States, being on U.S. grounds. So take that in consideration when you're approaching, you're talking about supplying a major brand like Grady Health Systems, not just the ones and twos, but we're talking about major supply chain. What are the payment terms? Crystal spoke about net 30. Net 30 in our case, as it relates to the payment of suppliers. Can you sustain your business and continue to operate your business in that time frame during that 30-day period before you probably get your first check from Grady? We don't prepay for supplies. A lot of hospitals have, during the pandemic times, a lot of hospitals have prepaid for items, and turns out the items are nowhere to be found. So we want a transparent supply chain. So we want to make sure that you can deliver the product at the time that you deliver to us on the delivery date. We do pay net 30, but we do have some exceptions for a net 5. That's after the delivery date. Those are the hot ticket items, or some of the items that we talked about as far as the PPE equipment, things surrounding that area. We also are interested in the freight, delivery costs. What is going to cost to us? What is our overall cost for this particular product? We need the cost of the items. We have a catalog. We have some type of pricing sheet or specification sheet as it relates to the sanitizers and the wipes. We need to know what those chemical ingredients are, or those mixtures are, because as a hospital, we have a minimum requirement that certain things can be at a level. We have to make sure that part is in the equation as well. Is there an allocation amount? If so, what is that amount? How much can we order a week? Like 5 pallets of sanitation wipes? Is that the maximum we can get for that particular week? We have to wait another week before we can add another 5 pallets to that order. What is that allocation amount? Can we buy in bulk? Of course, a lot of people that is in the medical supply industry know that a lot of the buys, hospitals our caliber, we buy in bulk. We use a great deal of those supplies. So we want to make sure that we understand how we can buy it and the amount that we can buy it as. And of course, like anything, like when you're buying a car, you want to test drive the car before you get into the car and buy it. And same thing about us. Can you supply a sample of any of your products? And you provide, I know it's kind of hard today in this environment, but definitely you can mail those supplies to our headquarters. And that information will be shared with you a little bit later in the delivery. The next question revolves around supplier diversity. Another piece that Crystal spoke about is being certified. We definitely have a high level of you being certified. We want you to be. We strongly encourage you. Even if you are just getting your product, your certification started, we would be interested in knowing that. And we will verify and check. The part of my responsibility that I have to vet suppliers that come through our supply chain. GMSDC, which is the reason why we're here today. We can get certifications or certificate certification from them, but we hopefully you will be more than willing to provide us those copies of certification. Capability statements, which is key, which is your resume about your company. We want to know what you can do, how you can do it. maybe who you've done it with on a more larger scale basis. But we want to make sure that we always have the most current version of your capability statement, especially now that a lot of people are reverting their overall business to accept the new challenges that relates to things that or items or supplies that hospitals need today. So they have made a shift in the way that they run their business. So make sure you have that information noted properly for the capability statement and make sure it's updated. The next bullet is actively registered with the state in which you're operating. We're not just talking about the state of Georgia, but I'm sure there are other reciprocal suppliers that have come from other states and have come here to be members of the great state of Georgia. So we want to make sure that you are actively registered in which state you operate in. And last and certainly not least is the current insurance limit. We want to make sure your COIs are in line with what you're trying to provide or sell to us as it relates to the supplies and products that you provide. So that's kind of complete. I kind of ran through a lot of those pieces as it relates to my delivery on what it takes to be a supplier with Grady Health System. And I hope between the information that Crystal have shared and what I have just covered regarding the process as it relates to that, I hope that can provide some advantages to you, making sure that we all come to the table with an equal setting. With that being said, Otis and or Ingrid, I will turn it back over to you for any questions that anyone may have this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ingrid James, the MBE Services Manager here at GMSDC. First, I want to thank both Crystal and Clovis for sharing with our MBE community the current opportunities at Grady Health Systems. So thank you both. Now, Otis and I will facilitate posing your questions as you type them in the chat box area over to your right. We ask that you please keep your questions related to the areas presented by both Clovis and Crystal today, which are construction and facilities management, personal protection equipment and medical supplies, and information technology.
I don't see any questions. Do you see any questions, Ingrid?
I do not see any questions coming in.
Okay. There's one from Ms. Grady.
All right, so the first question I have is from Letty Brown, and it says, good morning. Question, what is Grady doing to update signage due to COVID? What departments would that fall under?
Okay, I won't. That question's for signage. As a matter of fact, if you go by Grady today, you will see a new sign that says "Heroes Work Here," and a big Grady sign that's being there. So that falls under the facility, construction and facility arena, where it comes particular signage for the hospital itself. That's on the facility and the construction management team.
Okay. The next question comes in from Ms. Pearson, and it says, relative to sourcing people, what about recruiting or soft skill roles like external affairs, communications?
Those are areas that we're tapping into, communication, external affairs, marketing. All of those are some of the areas that we were focusing on in this first and second quarter of the year, but due to the pandemic, a lot of that activity will probably be delayed to maybe the third or even the fourth quarter of this year. But one of the things that we were to have this year was a showcase for the marketing communication. And now that you mentioned external affairs, we can include some of those areas as well. But those are some of the events that Crystal talked about that we share and work in conjunction with GMSDC to get that out to its constituents for those types of items that we're going to have at Grady. But those are definitely areas that we have focused on for 2020 of this year.
Okay. The next question says, are there any RFPs that are ready to go out now?
RFPs always can be found on our website, which is www.gradyhealth.org/supplier. Suppliers is plural. And there you can find a list of our RFPs and from our construction as well as our purchase services areas as well.
Okay. The next question says, what are your typical insurance limits for construction?
Now, I won't be able to give you specifics, and those always depend upon what projects are in that construction arena. It is something that the construction area has outlined for their particular project. So that would be a question that I'll have to throw over to the construction department to give you exact amounts, because I wouldn't be giving you just if I give you an amount and the project's worth double that value. That depends on evaluated for that certificate of insurance for that project. So it varies.
Okay. Joe from Integral Technical Group, his question is regarding PPE supply needs. And his question is, what PPE manufacturing information do you require? Do you need DUNS number, address, FDA certifications, etc.? Can you share the list of those requirements?
Yeah, I would say D, all of the above that were just mentioned. Those are some of the items that we look to get as far as a part of your fact sheet or your specification sheet as it relates. Any certifications, any FDA approvals, any white letters, anything that provide value to your product being in a hospital environment or can add value to the hospital environment, we definitely will want to see some of that information shared with us, because we have to, that information is being tailored back to doctors. They are definitely zooming in on the requirements as it relates to those items.
Okay. The next question, what is the website where suppliers go to initially register in Grady Supply System? And then part 2 is, what are some of your primary suppliers in the category of medical equipment and supplies? If we are a manufacturer, do we need to provide those products through those primary suppliers?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that last portion of it, but I'll try to speak into the question overall. We have now, to be honest, there are a few of you, or some of you might have been exposed to VendorMate. I would urge you to not go into VendorMate and pay a fee to register on that site. We do have on our website, which I just gave you the link to, excuse me, our web address, which I should say is a link to Supplier Gateway, where we urge people to go and register via that method. There you can upload your capability statements, your certificates of certifications, and any other pertinent information about your product in that space. So again, don't go to VendorMate to register, because there are fees associated with that process. And you want to make sure you don't go into there and register your business, because most of the time when people go on VendorMate and they pay those fees, they automatically assume that they have an executed contract. And that's not the process. So we kind of urge you to go to our web link and register on Supplier Gateway.
Okay. Excellent. The next question says, we are a supplier of microscopes. How do we get the requirements for microscopes?
I would urge them, I just put up a business card on my last screen that I have. Feel free to, you put in the subject line IPC or capability statement and send that information to me, whether it be your catalog, again, your pricing sheet, and any certifications that your product has been properly tested and gone through this vigorous test to be approved by FDA, or any other medical field that is required for that product or service to be performed in. So that's my business card. That's my contact information. That's my email address. So again, put in the subject line capability statements and or IPC and send that over to me, and we'll have all this rolling.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your contact information, Clovis. The next question says, I am certified with NMSDC, not GMSDC. Can I still work with Grady?
Yes, you can. NMSDC is the national organization for GMSDC. GMSDC and other local organizations, or should I say local minority supplier development councils, roll up to the national council itself. So yeah, that is a part of the family. So yeah, quite natural. Yeah.
Okay. The next question says, my company is a 37-year-old commercial printing company. Does ink on paper still play a role in operations of Grady? And how can we access your marketing and communications departments?
Again, that goes back, and this goes to every skill set related to Grady Health System and coming through the supplier diversity program. If you have those products, again, send that information to me directly. That is my contact information on the screen. Make sure you put in the subject line capability statement and or IPC and share with me your product. I can, in terms, feed that through the proper channels within Grady. And if there is a need for your particular item and our product, then therefore we have an opportunity for you. Now, let us all keep in mind that you have to have a need for your particular product, goods, service, or expertise. We just can't put you into the pipeline without there being a need for that. So please understand that portion of the process, that there has to be a need for your particular item, and therefore open up opportunities for additional discussions.
Awesome. Participants, I do want to let everyone know that we are recording this. The decks will be available to you as well. And if your question doesn't get answered or requested on air, we will make sure that the questions get to Clovis and we will try to get back to you with an answer. If I don't provide any of the services, the next question, if I don't provide any of the services spoke about today, what should I do to connect with Grady?
Well, periodically shoot me an email, quarterly at least, to see if there's an opportunity coming up or if there's an opportunity on the horizon for your particular product or services. I can definitely take a look and see if there's an opportunity there. It's like I come after you for those opportunities. I am well stating that we just don't have need for that service at this time. That doesn't necessarily mean that we won't have a need for that particular product, good, or service at some point down the road. So, open communication, open dialogue is always welcome.
Okay. Will there be a need for scientific personnel such as scientists, botanists, and lab technicians?
Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't no opportunity to come across my desk, I should say, for those types of services and our opportunities. That would be something that I would have to do some research on. won't be able to provide any answers at this particular time because I just don't know. But I haven't seen any requirements for those types of skill sets come across my desk at this point.
Okay. The next question says, to participate in annual general contracting task order contracts, job order contracts, awards, should we navigate through Vizient or a GPO, or is there another process?
Repeat that question again for me, please.
To participate in annual general contracting task order contracts or job order contract awards, should they navigate through Vizient or GPO, or is there another process?
Well, we tried, yeah, and I think that was a part of Crystal's last piece of her discussion about how to work with GPOs. A lot of that, we tried to work with our GPOs to leverage the opportunities for buying power through our GPOs. So we understand how to work with those. But then again, there are some isolated incidents where we might be able to utilize a different approach as it relates to that. But we try to work with GPOs as it relates to services that fits within their parameters. But let me go back to that question about the doctors and nurses and scientists. Those positions are usually handled through the medical school. So the person that posed their last question about the nurses and doctors, just so that they know that those are handled normally through our medical school, which is Emory and Morehouse.
Okay. The next question is related to information technology. What are the possibilities of helping in automation of data inventory records using robotics and AI for any front desk or medical records? And also, are there any insurance limits for the IT applications development?
Yeah, a lot of that, just so happens I have a strong background in IT and I can answer and relate to that question. A lot of that in-house is just that, kept in-house because of course, with HIPAA compliance and transfer personal information and things surrounding that type of environment, Grady likes to keep all that types of processes in-house. However, there are certain circumstances that comes from the IT where they may have to reach out and source some of that information, but a lot of that information is developed and kept in-house as it relates to the guidelines and responsibility as it relates to protecting information from the hospital.
Clavice, you're breaking up just a bit. Is there a way that you can maybe repeat what you just said?
I think I was referring back to the questions regarding robotics and IT. Is that any better? Are you hearing me any better now?
Yes.
Okay, great. A lot of that information is kept in-house, so we don't source a lot of that type of information due to the requirements that the hospital have and being HIPAA compliant and keeping personal information confidential as it relates. So a lot of that type of process is kept in-house in the IT arena as well.
Okay. We have time for a few more questions. What would you suggest for other suppliers that are in areas that were not discussed today?
Just because they were not discussed today doesn't necessarily mean that we won't have a need for them tomorrow. We are a hospital. We're constantly needing and buying and procuring items on a regular basis. The items that discussed today, with the exception of construction, those items could change tomorrow. But these are the items that we're interested in today. So if you have a particular product that you want to share with us, I gave my contact information is on the screen. Feel free to send me an email with that information and I will respond accordingly.
Okay. Question, how do we get information regarding bidding opportunities for construction projects?
Bidding opportunities for construction projects, information. Again, going back to our website, www.gradyhealth.org/supplier. And scrolling to the very bottom of that web page is a link for construction types of projects. There's a construction qualification sheet. Feel free to respond to that. Send that information in. Keep a watchful eye open on our website for projects or opportunities come across the pipeline. And that's really how you get your feet into the door. You have to fill out those qualifications forms first to make sure that all the prerequisite measures are met before you can continue forward with the projects we have there.
Okay. We saw in the news some of the events of flooding at Grady. My company is ServPro of Plantersville. Does water, fire, restoration services. How can I register to become a preferred vendor?
Funny they should ask that because their information specifically came across my desk. And their information was passed on to our construction and facility management team. And they did provide me with a capability statement and things of that caliber. But I think it was maybe a week or so, maybe a little bit longer when I got that information. It wasn't a part of the first wave of information that was sent over, but that is going back to the general consensus of the information that I've shared. If you have the skill set and you're trying to penetrate a particular area, send me that information, capability statement, and reference that information in your email. Send that to me. If an opportunity presents itself, then by all means, we want to move forward on that.
Okay. Next question. We are an 8A certified company. Does Grady ever contract through this method or vehicle?
Yeah, small SBA is one of the 5 different classifications or certifications that we accept there at Grady. So we do work with small business and 8A certified suppliers. But I can tell you, we do through a thorough search, just like we do with all of the other suppliers that come across our table. So we do a thorough process in vetting them as well. We want to make sure we know who we're dealing with and who they are, especially. Yeah, 8A is a part of our certification we accept. Yeah.
I want to thank you again for your time and your sharing of your knowledge and information with our MBE community as it relates to the opportunities that are present at Grady Health Systems. MBEs on the call. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say it has been my pleasure. And I'm great that even though in these uncertain times and our staff being stressed beyond capacity, still we have an obligation to fulfill and inform our community. So here we are.
Awesome. Participants on the call, your next steps. You will receive an email shortly inviting you to register in the My Business Match portal. You will then create your profile in My Business Match. That's when the vetting begins. What will happen next? Clovis and Crystal will review those MBEs that are the best fit for their open opportunities. We want to thank all of you for participating today and joining GMSDC for the virtual Independent Procurement Conference featuring Grady. And stay tuned because GMSDC will have several other corporate independent procurement conferences and opportunity calls in the months ahead. Please stay healthy, everyone.